If Uber could reinvent transportation and Airbnb could redefine hospitality, then why can't higher education reinvent itself too?
Meet Vivian Faustino-Pulliam, a founder and educator and former banker who has built multiple businesses and then turned around and built an entire entrepreneurial ecosystem inside of higher education.
Starting an academic program is pretty much like founding your own business. Exactly the same tools and resources that I need when I was starting my small businesses, I leveraged those to start the Center for Entrepreneurship.
In 2018, Vivian founded the Center for Entrepreneurship at the City College of San Francisco, the first of its kind to operate like a startup incubator inside a community college. And so she turned a project into its own kind of startup by thinking like a founder.
Why would I focus on what I don't have? I focus on what I have.
So instead of waiting for permission, what did she do? She knocked on doors, universities, tech companies, industry partners. She ran the center like a startup. She leveraged her locations, her deals, her contacts, and she built something from nothing.
Founding, entrepreneurship covers more than that. You could start a movement, you could start a nonprofit organization. But again, the same principles are needed for any of those to succeed.
So in this episode, we explore why entrepreneurship isn't just about starting companies. It's about building ecosystems, redefining careers, and restoring agency to people who have been told that they don't belong in the founder conversation.
Entrepreneurial mindset really is not about starting a business. You can use it even in...
Hey everyone, welcome to Founders Who Build. I am super excited today to welcome Vivian. Vivian is a founder by trade. She was a mom at 16. She was a hustler from a young age. And now she's a very, very successful businesswoman who runs a Center for Entrepreneurship. She's owned multiple franchises. She's had a food business. She had a commercial services business. I mean, Vivian, you've had a ton. Welcome to the show. I'd love for a chance for you to actually, introduce yourself and give a little background.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, thank you, Jedi, for having me. And I would say I am so glad that you're giving us at least a platform to talk about the other side of founding or other side of entrepreneurship. So my name, again, is Vivian Faustino-Pulliam. I am an educator, currently an educator. I've been an administrator, and I spent a lot of time, my professional career in banking and finance. But I was also an entrepreneur. I started several businesses. I founded commercial cleaning services, which was not really a thing in the past. So I was one of those pioneers. And at the same time, I also own several food franchises. But I would say I would describe myself now as more of an educator whose focus is really on spreading or really redefining entrepreneurship beyond the lens of small businesses.
And you founded a Center for Entrepreneurship, right?
Exactly. Yes. I founded the Center for Entrepreneurship from scratch at City College of San Francisco, which was the first during its time in 2018 to operate like an incubator in a community college setting.
Okay. And what was that like? What was that like actually creating a center for entrepreneurship as opposed to, creating a business? A lot of founders, are thinking, okay, they're hyper focused on my business. What's it like creating a center for learning entrepreneurship?
Yeah, and this is really an area where I'm really passionate about because starting an academic program, an academic center or resource center is pretty much like founding your own business. Exactly the same tools and resources that I need when I was starting my small businesses, I leveraged those to start the Center for Entrepreneurship. I have very limited resources. I didn't start with a big grant or anything, but I have dynamic capabilities as defined by many of these theorists these days. I focus on what I don't have, but I focus on what I have. And I
What do you
started,
mean? What do you mean by that?
oh, well, first of all, I know I can leverage my location. I am located in San Francisco,
Okay.
and this is where all these tech giants are situated. So to my mind, why would I focus on what I don't have? I can just leverage my locations. I started knocking on their doors for potential partnerships, collaborations, co-creating something to benefit our students. So that's how I started, by having this ability to think and running my center as a startup. It's my
Okay.
dream. Yeah. Mhm.
And did you have to like raise funds when for the center, like when you were creating it?
Yes, in a way, because we have very limited funding, community colleges. We don't have also a lot of leeway to raise funds. So I joined pitch events. I also joined with my colleagues in the college. We joined this pitch event with the National Association of Community College for Entrepreneurship. There were sponsors there, and that is an avenue where we were allowed to raise funds, because as a community college we have limited abilities to raise funds. So that's one way we did. So we won first place. And that is a funding that somehow helped us to widen our innovation hub or widen the services we offer through the hub. Another way that I would say I was able to raise not literally funds, but the resources is that I knock on one of this 4-year university here in the Bay Area, very famous one. And I was honest to them saying that, hey, I'm starting a center. All founders, you must learn how to ask. There's no shame in asking for help. So I said, I need our faculty to be trained. But to be honest, we don't have the funding. And they provided us 4 seats to get trained in their program for free. And then I approached different companies in the Bay Area who offer their services in kind in various capacities as mentors, as guest speakers. Intuit offered their QuickBooks for free for my students and so
Oh,
many
that's
others. Yeah. And also Shopify for our students to, simulate how it is to uh to have your website, and also other startup companies who would be open to work with me to, during their pilot years. Yes, let's use my students, our population here as sample for your startups, but at the same time for me also to save on cost. So it's again, there's a lot of X deals that I did just so we can develop and bring this center to life.
yeah. And you said something earlier, Vivian, before we started recording. You said a statement that you said that being a founder doesn't always mean that it's focused on a business. It could be a movement, right? Could you go into a little bit more about that? Because I feel like that really resonated with me off camera.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because this is way back in 2018, that whenever I talk to faculty or people in the startup community, they always think that founders should be always associated with those who started a business, or specifically for-profit business. Now, one of the early judges that I invited for my pitch event mentioned that I cannot be part of this because we cannot give out awards for those who are not geared towards business. And to me, I'm like, no, founding, entrepreneurship covers more than that. You could start a movement. You could start a nonprofit organization. You can just start a small organization. But again, the same set of tools, the same principles are needed for any of those to succeed. And that led me to look deeper into what would make any of these ventures, and ventures I define again in a broader context, not just small business and not only for profit business, could be a social entrepreneurship. So I was thinking that, hey, how can we make these ventures more successful? So I dedicated the last 6 years looking into the platform business model. I came from the industry, and academia, it has been operating based on its 20th century structure in a 21st century environment.
Mm.
So we are getting obsolete already. I'll be honest about it. So I'm thinking if Uber could reinvent transportation and Airbnb could redefine hospitality, then why can't higher education reinvent itself too? So I look
Mm.
at the model of platform business model, that how come higher education, especially entrepreneurship education, which is very fluid, it's so dynamic. As a founder, you cannot confine yourself utilizing the same set of principles and framework that worked a year ago. That's going to be obsolete by now, especially with AI. So I did a lot of research for the last 6 years looking into borrowing from the business playbook. Why can't higher education be at the center? And I piloted this in my Center for Entrepreneurship. So this is what I call the changing business model of higher education. I'm focusing on higher entrepreneurship education, that the college would be at the center. We're like the Uber platform or an Amazon here. And then we're connecting students and all the different vendors or the different resources coming from the industry. And I know that the real world out there works like a platform. It's dynamic, it's connected, and constantly learning. But if we use the same higher education model, which is so linear, like the student or teacher to student, classroom to grade, entrepreneurship isn't linear. It's network, it's messy, it's live. So, with the platform business model, this is what I did as a founder, because that's one of the traits of successful founders out there. They are bold
Yeah.
and they are disrupting what is out there. So for me, stepping out of my comfort zone, doing this, approaching this just like an ordinary business, even though this is an academic environment, I had to run the Center for Entrepreneurship as if it is a business. And I don't have the resources, the capital to make it a big one. But why would I not leverage the existing resources through the platform business model? So that's how I would answer the question about how businesses or how entrepreneurship can really benefit from the businesses out there and how it is not limited to just starting a business.
Yeah, no, that's really smart. Um, yeah, I was just invited to speak at the Mid Atlantic like business college conference a couple weeks ago, and when when I was up there, a lot of the deans of different schools, were talking about ideas for, how to pivot because, kind of like you said, they're operating in a an older environment, even though we're now in the 21st century, and one of the points that I had, or one of the observations that I had working with a lot of instructors in my role at Start Wars, is that it seems that many instructors in higher academia, especially instructors who maybe have been tenured, for years, that they are in this position where they still think that they're the smartest person in the room. And now with AI, they're no longer, that person. And I feel like that kind of gives students, when the instructor is still presenting themselves as that, and they're not pivoting on how they are doing instruction, that kind of devalues the for the perspective of the student. So I guess my question would be for you, since you're running the Center for Entrepreneurship, and since you guys are at this forefront and you're doing things differently, how do you make sure that when you are bringing in educational resources or instructors, how do you make sure that they're not falling into that pattern?
It's actually a little controversial when I was starting my little model, a different approach of bringing entrepreneurship education, because the way I see it, and I'm very much with you when it comes to this is professor who seems to be like the subject matter expert, which is no longer relevant today with AI. I can envision the future that the professor would be like my avatar, my image and likeness, then I will access all the information that is current and relevant from this from ChatGPT or all of those. I don't. They can provide more content than my human brain were able to have in the last 5 years. In few seconds, ChatGPT can do that. So this is how I approach it. I don't want to completely remove the value added of having a professor or an instructor in the classroom, but I would love to adopt a model wherein there would be a practical approach that would complement. The best way I would describe it is having a co-curricular
Mm.
program supporting the academic program, and an industry expert. Let's say, for example, we're talking about digital marketing. Well, somebody in at Facebook, or some companies out there, an expert really doing the job per se, will be in the classroom to co-teach with the faculty, and that's how I envision the model. Yeah, and some universities are already piloting this. So can you imagine that the experiential learning part is done with a collaborator, with a co-creator, and the curriculum, the course outline would be really relevant and applicable to what is happening in today's workplace.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could definitely see that working. I mean, hell, I mean, when we were building out the Startup Wars, we had no idea how to, enter into the education space. And so we just started going into classes with instructors and the students and interviewing them both as we were building it. And the students loved it, the instructors loved it. I mean, I think you're right. Like that co-piloting of the curriculum. I mean, that would be amazing because then you get the instructor's wisdom, and you get the real like current application knowledge from whoever the expert is.
Yeah.
How do you balance how do you balance, I guess, priorities for the company expert that would be coming in to make sure they're not just selling the student something.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And this is why, in the platform business model that I was talking about, the college would be at the center doing all the curating, the vetting of the content that will be filled into the students. For example, we have workshops and all that, and almost every professor is doing this. They invite a speaker from the industry. But it is kind of like ad hoc, it's not really formalized. It's not part of the curriculum, and it's not really being done in a more consistent basis. It's not structured. But if we have a co-curricular program that is embedded in the curriculum, I think it will have to have that kind of rigor that we are looking for, because that's what we're afraid of. We don't want to invite somebody who's just selling the products and services to our students. And that is the role of this incubator or this platform in the middle, making sure that we are the clearinghouse, vetting the contents of what's going to happen. But we have to ensure that students would have access to most current models, technology, knowledge, and skills out there.
Yeah. How do you think, Vivian, how do you think classrooms are going to change, like over the next, I don't know, 20 years? Like, do you think we're still going to have these very, very large classrooms, like auditorium style, or do you think that's going to change as well?
It's going to change because every day, all the writings on the wall, we see that students are craving for a different way of learning. And also, faculty would have to redefine teaching. What is our role now, or how do we teach, is so irrelevant couple of years from now, maybe with not even the next year, even right now, we are becoming irrelevant in a way. you know the traditional lecture classroom is not going to take it. Like what I said, it has to be experiential. And of course, especially for founders, sitting in a classroom listening to a lecture will not give you all the knowledge and skills and capacities and capabilities. We need to get the product out there. We need resources, the network that would make things happen. That's why I'm so passionate about the ecosystem, the entrepreneurial ecosystem that we should start and we should found within academia per se.
Oh, okay, yeah. And so like for your team, so you created this Center for Entrepreneurship, and it was a little bit controversial when you first started it, you said. So can you walk us through like what does that process look like, starting something at a higher education institution and finding a team, to work with you, who will kind of follow you through?
Good question. Because it's a one woman department.
Yeah.
It was me. It was me. There's no budget. But because, like what I said, I have to leverage on what I have. I identified, as a founder, the first thing we have to know are who are my competitors? What are they delivering? So I have to be different to be able to get other collaborators out there to work with me because my value proposition is so compelling. What is my mission? I have to begin with that. And again, I teach marketing. So everything I taught that we have to begin with that in mind, value proposition. I knock on this university. I knock on Stanford's door and they said yes to me. But because I think they believe in what I am envisioning to bring to the college. And again, going back to your how do I invited staff. I don't have the budget. So I talked to other departments and I sold the idea that, hey, I'm starting this center. I am under leverage. I don't have a lot of people to work with me, but this is what we can offer to students. So would you mind helping me with this? So I built the network. And then I get those people who started working with me on a volunteer basis. And then when they start seeing that there were results, really encouraging results. And we use the term minimum viable product, you have fraction. They saw that my minimum viable product is working. And then I started to get a little more funding. Okay, let's fund this. And then I got sponsorship from another department. They have a little money here. Okay, let's give it to the center because seems that what she's doing seems to be doing well. So let's give a little bit money to her. And then I really sought the support of student network, student councils, student clubs, just like any startup. Remember, you have to tap your influencers, all those things. So I tap those students because they are the ones who have the voice, not me. They would listen to somebody who looked like them, so the students were the one who talk about the center. I don't have marketing budget. I don't have promotional campaigns that would, the marketing dollars to support those campaigns. So for me, use the influencers. Who are those with the voice, especially those that would really influence the community, even outside the college. And that's when the industry around the Bay Area and also community partners started to say, hey, we heard what you're doing and we're interested to work with you.
Yeah, and I'm sure it helped that you had a marketing background. I didn't realize you had a marketing background.
Yes, my last position was vice president for marketing for a global bank.
Oh wow, that's cool. A big transition then, right?
Yeah, but honestly, when I look at my life, with my small businesses, that entrepreneurial mindset powered me even in my corporate career because I think differently. I do not more- I'm more scrappy, so to speak, and sometimes my colleagues during those years, sometimes they would say, "Oh, kind of like a loose cannon or
Yeah.
crazy, crazy like that." But to me, I think that has become to be my superpower because being an outlier, I ask a lot of questions, and that actually becomes really work to my advantage. And I would say again, that's my superpower, being curious, being I had the humility to pretend that I don't know so I can learn more. And then from there, my entrepreneurial mindset applied to my corporate career. So I was lucky enough to always get promoted, very open. From I started as a bank teller all the way to vice president for marketing at the corporate level. So I think entrepreneurial mindset really is not about starting a business. You can use it even in redefining your career, fast tracking your career. And now, as an educator, even in starting an academic program.
Yeah. And so tell me, like the actual center, is that a nonprofit or what's the actual organization structure?
It is, as a college, we are a nonprofit, a government institution. So it operates within the center or within the college. So definitely, it's a nonprofit.
Okay, but like I guess what I'm asking is it a separate like legal entity or is it a like brand within the college?
It's a brand within the college.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. And are there like is that how entrepreneurship centers are typically structured, for anyone who maybe was thinking about creating their own entrepreneurship center?
Well, because again, my dissertation is on this entrepreneurship education. So I did a lot of research. Some colleges, they are running an academic program, entrepreneurship certificates or academic degrees,
Okay.
but they don't have a physical center or the resources that I mentioned earlier, the entrepreneurs in residence, the mentorship, the all the other stuff that I bring to the table. That is something that they have on kind of like informal basis. One professor is doing it, the other class is not. It's really unstructured. So there are a few colleges who have their own centers operating within the college, but not really as a separate entity. Although there are a few wherein their center is situated outside the campus. It is in the main downtown area, so they have more reach or more access or getting it more accessible to the community, even for non-students.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mhm.
And I guess like, I want to get into advice a little bit here for people who are looking to create some sort of program within, an academic institution. What kind of advice would you give them?
Oh, good that you asked that because, again, like what I had said, this is the time that we really have to disrupt the way we are running academic institutions. This is where we have to learn how to unlearn. Sometimes we think that learning is the hard stuff, but the truth is, unlearning is even harder. We got
Very.
so used to being, this is the structure, this has been working for the last 100 years, don't crack the boat, or why, kind of things. But to be honest, it's not gonna cut it. So I would say we've got to embrace change, and we have to really redesign the way this linear model of higher education is being delivered today. We have to do away with that.
Especially with how transformative AI is. I was just watching a talk by someone out in Silicon Valley, talking about the AI space and the difference between a a product company that tries to take this new technology, put it onto an existing stack, try to make that work, versus a company who thinks completely differently from the ground up, and they throw away everything that was done before and they say, let's just design something completely new. And it sounds like what you're saying is that in this space you really have to unlearn the traditional approach and start with something completely new. Otherwise it's just not going to succeed.
Yeah, exactly. And also, we should stop building products. And as an academic institution, and even when I was an entrepreneur, I don't focus on building just the product. When you think about Apple, they built an ecosystem around the product. So that's what I'm trying to do. I am building an ecosystem around the program, because the program itself, students will go there, sit down in a classroom, listen to a workshop, listen to a speaker, and then what happens next? They're at a loss after they got out of campus or after they finished their degrees. So what we need is really building an ecosystem. And what I meant by that is to bringing in partners, just like how I invited you also to be part of
Oh,
my ecosystem at City College. So we should stop building just the products, but build an ecosystem around it. Yeah.
it's very similar to to in the startup industry, like like don't build a product, solve a problem, right? Don't build a product, build an ecosystem.
Yeah, and also definitely it is about the problem that I am seeing. What inspired me to get into this, looking deeper into why is it that entrepreneurship education is, especially in a community college setting, is it's sort of like losing its luster. And it's
Mm.
it's because of, I think it's because of frustration that I see how we are competing not with academic institutions anymore. We're competing with other industry players there, or non-academic institutions who can offer the same set of certificates and programming that we normally are limited for academic institutions. But again, why do we have to compete with institutions or organizations like that? All we have to do is partner with them,
Mm.
because I hate redundancies, I hate duplications, and most of all, I don't have the budget. So if we can work together, but remove the duplications, I think it's a win-win solution for both the industry partner and the academic institution.
Yeah, necessity breeds innovation, right? You don't have the budget, so you found a way, and it's a successful way.
Yeah, exactly. So because I always hear that, administrators or faculty would say, well, we're losing students to this training program offered by this company or offered by this nonprofit and all that. But when I look at it, academic institutions should be providing all those the knowledge and all that. But the skill set, people from the industry should work closely with us. So we cannot really keep up with the pace of technology, and we don't have the budget to buy the most current CRM system, etc. But if we work with Salesforce,
Yep.
we'll help train your potential employees, but you have to help us to redefine our curriculum, and we'll invite you to teach our students so they are already one foot in this real world.
Yeah. Well, and so if we could talk about like some of the successes about the actual ecosystem, that you built in the Entrepreneurship Center. Like, do you have any like case studies or stories, of students that have gone through it and kind of like what they went through?
Yeah, and like what I said earlier, that entrepreneurship is not only for those who want to start a business, because I have one student who just launched a book, a children's book.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, she was in my program, and for her, she was saying like, "I'm not an entrepreneur, but whenever I hear about you pitching what entrepreneurship is about, that it's a mindset, you know." She said, "I was encouraged to join." And then she said, "I have a dream of becoming a published author, and I love children and I love my dog." So she was able to realize the dream, and in fact, she won an award for the book.
Oh, cool. What was the award? Do you know?
Yeah, what's the name? It's for I'm sorry, I can't exactly recall, but it's for the best children's book in a
Oh,
certain
cool.
category. Yeah. So for me, that is a win, because and also a tangible manifestation that the entrepreneurial mindset and the tools that you learn in the program apply to us to a, kind of like self-actualization, you know? And I have one student who actually cried in front of a classroom when she started pitching her idea. It's not a pitch event, it's just in the classroom, but I always encourage them to, ideate, talk about their idea. And then finally, she was hearing others kind of like affirming her ideas. And for her, that validation means so much. And I said, "Oh my goodness," she was crying. And she said, I never felt it in my life that my idea matter.
Mm,
And to me, that's an aha moment. We're
that's
making an
awesome.
impact. Yeah. So self-efficacy is one thing that I believe our program or entrepreneurship actually is all about. It enhances a student's self-efficacy because the mentor is there to support them. When things are falling apart, one student would say whenever they see this equation, "Oh, I'm not good in math, I can't do it. Oh, I don't have the money, I can't start my business, even though I've been working as a contractor for so many years, but I can't start my own." And I said, "Why would you say that?" And then their answer is that, "My parents, my cousins, my community told me I cannot be an entrepreneur. I don't have the money, I don't have the network. People wouldn't believe me." So to me, that is self efficacy. It is self fulfilling prophecy because
Mm,
they decided already for themselves. And now I see that whenever they are in the program and 1 year in the program, how it changes their mindset and how it transforms them. I have one situation, and I really, really want to share this. I think the student is struggling with substance abuse, and then he was able to be with us, and all the way from day one of the semester, was able to complete no absence in the entire semester, and was able to pitch an amazing idea. I didn't know that in the audience was his mother and father. And after the event, and this is not a young kid, this is a 28-year-old, I think early 30s guy. And then the parents came to me after the pitch event, and they said, "Your program saved my son."
mm,
Because it gave him hope. People listened to his idea, and it gave
yeah.
him a sense of purpose, that what he identified is something that would benefit other people out there. And to me, these are not concrete or quantifiable measure how much profit you made and all that, but the transformation, especially for a community college where we serve non-traditional students. We serve a lot of students and also older adults and those who are struggling with many different challenges in life. I think that's the role of community colleges. And how we can do that is really providing the training on how they can increase resilience and grit. And entrepreneurship is one of those disciplines who can really introduce that. So I think it should not be just a discipline, or kind of like, okay, if you're taking a program in entrepreneurship, you're gonna take it under business department. But entrepreneurship should be a prerequisite across disciplines, just because of all those things and attributes that I mentioned and actual stories I've witnessed.
Yeah. No, that's really powerful. And you mentioned that like in community colleges that the demographic is shifted. It's not just like, people fresh out of high school. What is the typical demographic?
I can speak for my college here, City College of San Francisco, and also based on my research for my dissertation, which several colleges in the Bay Area, we still have a lot of high school, fresh out of high school, but the number of immigrants and the number of older adults are increasing. And the reason for this is because these immigrants who have degrees from their home countries, they come here and their degrees do not qualify or equivalent to the degree here. So they couldn't find a gainful, meaningful employment. And for them, others, wouldn't want to step down like that. And their option is that maybe I should start my own because I am actually skilled in doing these things. All I need is just to learn the trade or the craft
Yeah.
help starting a business. So that's why we have more of those. And then also older adults because we know that baby boomers is the largest generation now, you know, the retirees and all. So now they're still young. When you think about 65-year-old, that's equivalent to someone who's 50 years old 20 years ago. They
Yeah.
still have a lot of energy and ideas. And what are they going to do? They want to start something, not necessarily a for profit, but a movement, an organization, a community. So again, I saw this almost every semester, their numbers are increasing. And also those who are trying to retool, trying to quit the 8 to 5 work, not because they're not happy with their work, but basically one of the driving forces is that the search for meaning and purpose, sense of
Mm.
purpose. Yeah.
And I know we're coming up on time here, but I would love to give you an opportunity to share some resources and advice that you often give to founders that you think is really meaningful and useful.
I would say the advice I would give is again, like what I said earlier, learn to unlearn. And I've seen this many times. They're so melded into this traditional way of thinking or they believe into something. So first is they have to unlearn what they have learned for many decades in their life. You've got to be flexible. You've got to be very, very agile and ready to pivot when necessary. And you've got to be paying attention to the writings on the wall, you know? And then I would say that take note of your own set of strengths. Sometimes you would see that your past experiences aren't detours. They're not. They are dots waiting to be connected.
Mm,
Yeah. So sometimes the opportunities would lie on those untapped opportunities or untapped capabilities that sometimes we were not able to identify or we were not able to leverage. But it's important to connecting the dots. And that to me is I would say I've been kind of successful in always trying to see where these dots would connect. And lastly, I would say again, do not hesitate to ask.
okay.
One thing that we all know as entrepreneurs is always ask, because we cannot do it by ourselves. That's the saying is real, very true. No man is an island and it takes a village. So we have to build ecosystems. We have to, for products or ideas to be sustainable or when growth happens, it only is when we start focusing on relationships first.
Yeah, that's the truth. I like that. And I like that too. The dots are waiting to be connected. That's a cool saying. And
Great.
and what about advice, Vivian, for what advice have you heard founders get that you think is utter bullshit? Just like they should not be hearing this advice.
Oh, okay. Uh that you have to be out there every single networking opportunity and then I know we should pivot when it is necessary, but sometimes I noticed that there were advice on grab the opportunity, it's right there. At the end of the day, you would find yourself you're how would I say it, that there's so much on your hand.
Mm,
And then you're losing focus on something that is important. So those invitations, sometimes it is powerful to say no. It's hard. I know it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we have to prioritize and then focus on what really matters because it's so tempting. Oh, I can meet these people there. Oh, there's an opportunity here and there. Before you know it, at the end of the quarter, what have you accomplished? So I always do a self audit, even personally, not only in terms of my businesses. I audit my growth as a person. And if I know, okay, this quarter I haven't grown at all. I mean, professionally, personally, I would say I have to subtract because growth is not only in terms of addition, it could be
Mhm.
subtraction. So I have to lessen this so I'll be able to grow in a way that I really would like to reach my destination.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with that more. I remember when I first like started my first company was an agency, and me and my co-founder, we built it for a couple of years, then we split, and I was going to take over the company. And one of the best pieces of advice I got, was to focus and to like stop going to, all these different networking events just for the hell of it, right? And when we did that, I started firing our customers, and instead of being like a general services agency, we just focused on mobile. And then it was scary at first, but after we did that, it became so much easier to remember the OpenForge brand. It's like, oh, OpenForge, mobile apps. That's easy. It's so much easier than saying, oh yeah, we're a dev shop. We do X and Y, and blah blah blah. And I remember thanking the guy who gave me that advice. Like, a year or two later, I called him up out of the blue, and I was like, hey, seriously, his name was Matt. I was like, seriously, Matt, thank you so much, because I was terrified to stop taking business just because I was terrified of losing a paycheck. But it was the best decision I could have made.
Yes, I agree. And I'd also learn it myself the hard way when I was in corporate world because, I was in wealth management. So we always have to bring in clients after clients after clients. We
Sure.
have volume of business to bring every month. So just like you, I'm afraid that I'm not going to meet my goal and I might lose my paycheck or I might be kicked out the door. And my boss, I still thank him for this. One line he always tells me, Vivian, focus, focus, focus. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Well, Vivian, this has been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for joining the interview series. I think this is going to be super valuable, for everyone who's listening, especially for those who are listening who are looking to create a nonprofit or a program or something that's not like a traditional, tech startup. Because I think this is really valuable information. How can people get a hold of you and contact you afterwards?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I would say also a little plugging here.
Yeah.
If this conversation really sparks something in you or an idea or whatever, even a challenge, especially in a service industry or academic environment, I'm available for consulting. I'm working for another big community college in Southern California now to start their own entrepreneurial ecosystem. So I'm open to co-create and collaborate and redefine the future of higher education, especially in the space of entrepreneurship education. So for change makers out there, you can easily connect with me. I'm on LinkedIn, Vivian Faustino-Pulliam on LinkedIn.
Okay, cool. Awesome. And do you prefer LinkedIn or email?
Yes, they could email me too.
Okay.
Yes, it's I've used my city college. It's V Faustino. See my name V Faustino at ccsf.edu. And again, as a college, we are always welcoming new collaborators.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and we'll put that in the notes for anyone who's like listening on podcasts. Then we'll put it in the YouTube description as well. So awesome. Well, yeah, Vivian, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you everyone for listening in. This is Founders Who Build. If you like this presentation by Vivian, and if you'd like to learn about entrepreneurship and future ways to building products and companies, then please like and subscribe. And with that said, we will see you all for the next episode. Thank you.